Hey everyone, I'm back on a bit of a weekend project for me. I've got a few devices here that I collectively have kind of been using for the past few years, one of which you might recognize. But yeah, so what I've got is a Synology 5-bay, what is this thing? It's a DS1513 Plus. It's a 5-bay unit that I got from work, decommissioned. I've got a gigabyte bricks here. This has been on the channel before, and this is currently my retro NAS store. So that's where all my files get synced to interact with retro computers. It also runs a web proxy for those retro computers for HTTPS conversion. I've got a really old Mac Mini, and this is given to a friend of ours. So this is going back up to him soon because I've really stopped sort of using it. And for the longest time, this was my not Synology, my Unify controller, as well as a print server and music streaming box. So it had iTunes and stuff on that. But yeah, the Synology was doing my PC backups and archives, and I've got something to replace it, and it's a good thing I do have something in the works because it's, well, as you can see with the lid off, it's currently broken. This blue light is just flashing. It was working fine. Then I factory reset it, and using the GUI, it restarted, and then that was it. No more access. So can't find its IP, can't find it doing an IP scan, can't find it on a static range, whatever network port it's plugged into. Yeah. So this, I think, is bricked. Sorry. Good job, Synology. But what it does have, apart from 5 drives, is 4 terabyte Seagate drives. And I don't believe these are anything fancy. These are just desktop hard drives. And I've been kind of looking for something that will kind of replace all of this stuff, because this is annoying to remote into. It can only SSH unless I plug a screen in because of Linux. It needs a HDMI input to output a virtual display. That's so old, it's Core 2 Duo, it's effectively useless, and this is bricked. So what I'll do is I'll show you guys what I've found, because of course I was on AliExpress, the home of the homebrew and the home lab and gear. And yeah, I think it's going to be pretty cool and exciting to build in. Okay, so in this box is a case called Johnsbow. I've never heard of that brand, but they seem to be really killing the home brew, well, I keep saying homebrew, the home lab market. So basically they've released a huge amount of cases. There's like 5 or 6 of these things. This is the N3, and I'll show you why I picked this particular one. Sorry about the plane going overhead, and also my frame rate because my stupid lights in my house flicker. But yeah, this is the N3. It takes a mini ITX board, and it has 8 3.5-inch hard drive bays. So this case you can find on AliExpress. It's roughly, well, $300 NZ. I think it was about $320 shipped. And I'll go and grab the case so you guys can see what it looks like. Okay, here is the case. This is the N3. It's quite a nice little case actually, and it's a very similar size, I think, to the Synology that I'm about to sit next to it. So here it is next to the 5-bay. You can see it is a little bit taller, basically almost another one of these, maybe 2/3 high. And yeah, it takes 8 drive bays and it's actually got a proper backplane in it. Now, I do work, my day job, I work and maintain servers, physical servers, so this sort of gear is not what I would consider enterprise, but for home, you know, it's really hard to, you know, you can't really complain about the value. Just shining a light in the back here so you can see. So yeah, it has 8 bays, and these take SATA hard drives as well as SAS. So they do have, if I can zoom in here, you can see they do have the special cutout for the SAS drives, which is quite cool. And yeah, it's got good ventilation all around. So, you know, it's got a vent at the front. And of course, being black, this thing is really hard to get on camera. And there is the backplane. So there's the back of it, and this just connects to a SATA backplane that you can see all along here. It has a couple of power inputs, a couple of fan headers. This is a USB 3 cable for the front. And yeah, here is the rear. Yeah, so it's got the IO shell that came with the motherboard that I'm about to fit, that I'll show you guys. It's got 2 full height PCI card slots, 2 rear fans, come with this as well, and this sits in here. These connect to the fan headers. I'm not too sure about these Johnsbow branded fans. They are probably a bit loud. I'm going to swap these out with some Noctuas. So I wouldn't mind getting a couple of Noctuas on the top and 2 on the bottom. I think these are like 80mm here, and these might be maybe 120, 90, something like that. Not too sure, I have to measure that. Yeah, on the front, normal USB-A port, USB-C port, headphone, microphone combo jack, and these are lights right here. So I'll zoom in on those. It's really hard to see probably. These are actually individual LEDs that connect to the backplane. So you do get actual individual hard drive activity LEDs. And I think that's just really sweet. And Mr. Boots is curious about the box. So while he's doing that, you do get an instruction manual as well. Sort of shows you a bit about the case itself. It's quite nice. In the box, you do get some accessories. So as I see, you get the instruction manual. Got some zip ties and stuff. Quite handy for cable management. Some fan screws, don't know what that is. This tool is to remove the side panel on the top. Basically that. So yeah, we've got some screws. These look like motherboard screws. Might as well get some of this stuff out because we're going to need it. These look like more fan screws. I'm guessing for the rear. It's quite nice. They're black as well. Match the case. Don't know what these are. I think these are for the 2.5-inch bay that's inside. Which we'll get to in a moment. Now, one point of contention. I've seen online with these. So these are the hard drive caddies as such. So there's no thick plastic rail. These go around the drive like so, in here, and you pull on this rubber band, and these can be quite difficult to remove. I've heard if you don't tighten the screws too tight, it allows this to move around a bit easier and therefore be removed easier. But I will be honest, how often do you pull out hard drives? You know, like hot swap. It's not something that well, since I've had that Synology, I've done it maybe once or twice. So yeah, we'll check out the inside of the case. Okay, so here is the inside of the case. So it is a micro ITX standard. Inside of here we have a USB 3 header. This is a USB-C header, which I've got just a cheap AliExpress adapter to convert it to USB 2. I know, not fast, but to be honest, I don't care because that's what I don't really need it. But at least it will function. We have an HD audio header for the front panel. This here is to the LEDs for the individual hard drives, and this is the front panel connector. So a few of them. Cable management's a little bit messy in this case. This here is the power extender from the rear here to your SFX power supply, which I've got, and then this is just a caddy that bolts in. So for a motherboard, I had some very specific requirements, and AliExpress is full of these like home NAS motherboards. So if you search on AliExpress for ITX NAS motherboard, there's huge amount of options and stuff, and ultimately I ended up settling on this one. And this one wasn't sort of fully designed as a NAS motherboard, but it does have quite a few good features. So yeah, this one was roughly about 500 bucks New Zealand. And this one's got the Ryzen 9 6900HX mobile processor, I believe. And it's made by a company called Topton PC, and they seem to be the most prolific maker of these things. And it came in this box. I'll show you the cooler in a minute that I had to buy for it. Came in this box, essentially, with just like a user's manual. It's pretty basic. We've got the Wi-Fi adapters, shroud and antennas, a bunch of screws, some generic thermal paste, SATA cable. That was literally it. So I ended up buying this board. So it has two network ports. These are both 2.5 gig Intel Ethernet chips, which for me, if you're buying a motherboard and you want it to work with all sorts of hypervisors and applications or a firewall or anything like that, if you can just buy an Intel chipset, you're generally better off with compatibility, is what I've found. So that was important, but I'm not going to be relying on these two ports. So I'll get to that in a moment. It's got two HDMI ports and a display port. I've got four USB 2.0 ports, two USB 3.0 ports, and onboard audio. That takes DDR5 RAM. It has four SATA ports on the back here. which I just realized you probably can't see because it's, again, a black motherboard, and this lighting is terrible. It also has a NVMe slot on this side, which is what I wanted, especially in a decent orientation, and on this side of the board, because it's going to run an accessory, as well as one on the back. And what I've done is I've just shoved in just a rando PCI 256 gig NVMe drive, which I don't know what I'm going to use this for, but it's got a slot. I've got loads of these that came out of old laptops, so why not? It also has a X16 slot here, again, really important for what I needed. Power, of course, USB 3 port here, couple of fan headers, that sort of stuff, and yeah. So the cooler, of course it's a Noctua cooler. You are limited on your height for your coolers in the Johnsbow N3. So I ended up picking up this NHU 9S. The maximum tower height in the Johnsbow is it's 130 millimeters, I believe, and this is what is this, 125 mil high. So yeah, and plus it's compatible with AM4, AM5, decent cooling. I can fit the RAM behind, well, in front of it. You know, there's your clearance for your RAM, so that was super important and doesn't seem to interfere with anything else on the board. So yeah, that just plugs in right here. So that's the motherboard, and I have tested this just as it sits, and it does work. Now for RAM and power and stuff, I've got this Kingston 32 gigabyte module. I believe this is 4800 megahertz. This motherboard only supports up to 4500 megahertz RAM, and that's a really odd speed. In DDR5 world, it was really hard to find, at least locally in New Zealand, memory. So I've only got one stick, and I'm thinking I might buy two, but I've bought at least this part number here that is actually quite easy to find. The supplier I got this from had loads in stock, so I can always add another. For power, I'm trying a power supply brand that I haven't heard of before. It was on Computer Lounge, which is a reputable reseller in New Zealand. Yeah, from what I understand, I think these are all right. It was like $100 cheaper than a Silverstone one. SFX power supplies in New Zealand, I didn't really have a huge amount of options. There's a few brands like Corsair. I think Lee was another one, but I heard that the fan on those is really loud. So I thought, you know what? It's got a warranty on it, you know, and as you should do with any system, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, which means if this blows up and kills everything, you should have backups elsewhere. That's how I view it. That's how I'm treating it. Therefore, I'm going to run the gauntlet a small bit. This is not an enterprise grade setup that I'm doing. So normally in my right mind, I never ever build this type of unit that I'm building. So with those rules, this will work just fine. It's fully modular. Comes with all the cables. I haven't actually even tried this thing out. Comes with, you know, all sorts of nice cables. And yes, the Johnsbow only supports these small power supplies. There it is there. These are kind of nice little units. Feels nice and heavy too. you know, really solid 80 plus gold efficiency ratings. 750 watts should be more than enough to run this build. I also have these, sorry about the sunlight. I also have these enterprise grade Intel SSDs. These came out of a really high-end cluster server. I had actually loads of these. I've been slowly getting through them. I think I've only got these 2 left really. Oh, maybe 4 more. And I'm thinking, along with those 4 terabyte hard drives, the OS that I'm going to try out supports like a ZFS cache, and I'm thinking of putting these 2 in a mirror and using it as like a write cache or read cache or whatever for the drive. And that's actually what I could do with that NVMe drive on board. That's kind of interesting actually. I also have these 2 matching Evo, I believe these are like 850s, yeah, 850s. These are 256 gig. So I could have an even greater write cache, but these are just home brand, you know, drives. And what I'm actually thinking is using these instead, reducing the risk of corruption, putting them in a mirror. These are designed to handle a lot of I/O, you know, long lifespan. These never had data on them, and this cluster server, these never got hammered. So in terms of the lifespan of the NAND flash, these are like, I mean, they might be older, but they're actually really in great shape. I actually haven't had a single one of these die out of the 20 or 30 that I've had. So I'm thinking of those. As you may have spotted on the computer, on the motherboard, there's only 4 SATA ports, and it's an 8-bay NAS. So what I really wanted to do is put in that 16x16 slot is a host bus adapter. I'm trying to remember what this one is. I believe it's like an LSI, something like that. I'll have to put up the link. And it has in the box a couple of cables. And these plug into the card and convert it to 8 SATA ports. So it's an actual true RAID host bus adapter. And I figured that would be a great addition to offload some of that I/O from the motherboard, freeing up, you know, resources. The other thing I have, which unfortunately I can't use until I upgrade my networking, is a 10 gig Intel Ethernet card. This one's a little bit odd because you might remember on the motherboard there's only 1 PCI slot. But what this card is an NVMe card with this cable, and it connects to this full height card. This is also an Intel chipset. So I believe all the smarts is behind here, converts it to an SFP port. SF80, 87 is what it's called. I'll bring up the exact listing. But this is why I wanted that NVMe port. So all this is an adapter to convert NVMe over this special cable. I forget what it's called, like so. And that plugs into that port here. And there. Don't be afraid of trying stuff like this, especially for this type of build, because from what I've heard, the NVMe port being just, you know, straight PCI pretty much is actually a viable option for accessories. So I was watching a few level 1 tips videos, and yeah, they're like, don't be afraid of trying this stuff out. And of course, that's going to sit right here like that. And that's going to go in just like that. So I've got my 2 cards populated. That's all the parts under control. Let's get this thing built. And what I've heard with the 2.5-inch hard drive system is it is possible to fit 2 drives in here, although not too sure where to mount such things. And the other tip I was provided online is actually a really good YouTuber, NAS Compares in the UK there, and his bread and butter is pretty much reviewing these sort of systems, and he said to start with the power supply first, then the motherboard, because it's really hard to get the cable routing in the correct spot, because some of these designs are not super you know, super elegant. They're trying to pack a lot of stuff in here. So yeah, get this power supply put together and throw it in. Run into a small power delivery problem. So my power supply, although it has enough outputs, the cables, some of them are not quite long enough to reach this backplane. So what I'm going to do, this is something I wouldn't normally at all recommend, is adapt it, essentially. So yes, it does mean I've got a mustard cable in here, but if it works, well, is it a dumb idea? Yes it is. Yeah, this is a dumb idea. Don't do this. I haven't tested this, so I'm just assuming it works. It's quite handy with the front panel connector that's here, because this only has power switch and power LED, no hard drive, no reset or anything like that. So yeah, makes wiring it up really simple. And I don't have a Wi-Fi module that would go in this slot that you see here with the CAN. Not to say one day I couldn't add that, but I think for this build, this might be enough. Oh, there it goes, just needed a good angle. Now this is the only thing I don't like, is this. That's what's gonna happen, unfortunately, with that card. Not a whole lot I can do about that, but we'll keep moving on. So connector 0 is up here. It's got a SATA or SAS 0 and sorry about that focus, and SAS 1. So those are your 2 ports. So there's number 2, number 1, and then we'll put that in the machine. Bear with me while I spend an awful lot of time getting this I'm going to take those off. Just get the card in first. Actually, I'm going to get both in. I need to fit the full height adapter. Ideally, you would have a fan blowing across this, so I might have to work something out. Flops around a bit, and I might as well put this stupid cover back on that I don't really understand why it exists. Like 2 meters. They are definitely designed to go inside of a server, so I've got to figure out how to get all that crap in there. So yeah, I'll be back. Okay, so everything's kind of tucked in down there in between the motherboard and the backplane. I have to leave this gap free for the hard drives to slide in, so there can't be any cables in this big gap that you see here. It's going to be behind it. So yeah, everything's in. I'm just going to double check everything, and then what we'll do is I'll grab the rear fan box, wherever that is. Get these fan cables plugged in. And these are just thumb screws. Okay, it's getting heavier now, that's for sure. So I've got my HBA connected. I think I'm going to throw a zip tie around its cable just to stop this moving. Oh, actually with the SATA power connector, that's doing good. That's holding it against away from the card behind it. Just because that's I was worried it was gonna touch. And there's a nice little bit of breathing room. As I said, there should be a fan ideally in the front here blowing air across these cards. That's how they're designed to work. So I might have to rig something up. Not too sure there. We'll come back to that. Okay, so I just had a bit of a battle. Once again, what I'd recommend doing is leave the power supply unscrewed until you're ready to finish assembly, because I just realized, I don't know if you can see down there, but there's the, oh gosh, but you have to take my word for it, these are the SATA ports, and here's the power supply that's right up against it. So to get right angle power supply cables, then that's allowed me to remove the power supply, get the SATA power supply, SATA data cables in for these two hard drives. Look at this thing, it is packed. Right, I just need to get one more 2.5 inch drive mounted. And I just need to find another screw. This case states it can only take one drive, but as you can see, you can get two in. Right, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time just doing some cable management. This kind of is a little bit messy, but it's got a lot of stuff in it, so yeah, I'll forgive it. Okay, so here is sort of the finished product. It's not very elegant, but it's what I would consider functional. So this fan, I've just kind of put this here just for a moment. I'm kind of thinking of using two holes that are here, 3D printing some sort of bracket. I don't own a 3D printer, but I'm sure I can find someone who's going and get something made. I've cable tied the power supply cables here so they don't go inside of the fan. I've left provisions here. This is a Y splitter for the rear, because this takes two. So I figured this adapter's just hanging around. I may as well get it in. I'll just leave it tucked there. The power supply cools from this side here, the fan's here. So yeah, I'm gonna fire this thing up without any hard drives put in, get the OS installed, and yeah, see how it works. Sorry I can't do a capture input because this is, after all, it's a digital input. My capture card's analog. Okay. Oh yeah, monitor's waking up. There we go, got post. Let's have a look at the post screen. Right, date and time's in. Time is 4:51. Yeah, so we've got our 2 NICs, we've got our 10 gig, got our LSI host bus adapter. That's really cool. I have enabled power on after AC failure because, you know, your server loses power. You want to have that boot back up, and all the virtualization stuff too. There's our processor. On the key, I've got a copy of TrueNAS scale, so we'll get that plugged in. Okay, test out our front I/O, of course. All right, TrueNAS. So it's given our drives. I'm actually going to go ahead and just install that on that NVMe. Now normally I'd prefer a RAID, some sort of RAID setup on my boot drive. But as you've seen from the build, I've got a limited space for drives. Oops. You know, I've got limited space, so yeah. Okay, so to get the drives in, basically involves 6 screws. So there's 2 at the solder end of the drive. So I've pre-assembled the screws with their little rubber dampers. So it's basically 4 of these guys, and then 2 plain screws for the rubber handle. Now I've just fitted one in there to give it a test, and I can confirm this is not exactly a great mounting solution. The rubber grommets and standoffs get stuck in the rail shaft as such and bound up, which means you have to pull on the silicone handle like really hard. I don't suspect those handles would last many pulls, if you get my drift. So basically it's, yeah, it's like trying to tear itself apart. And the backplane thankfully is labelled, and then you just push the drive in, and then once it's in there, like, it's not going anywhere, but you do have to pull quite hard. It's not going to fly out, but that, you know, there's only so many times you can pull on that material before it disintegrates and breaks. So yeah, I've got a bunch of screws up here, so I'm going to just carry on and get these put together, and then we'll jump in the UI once it's booted up. So I'm not used to ZFS, I'm used to RAID. More of a RAID guy, it's what I understand, but we'll get this booted up. But basically, from Oh, are they actually spinning? Oh yeah. I did make sure the power supply that I had has enough amps for that circuit. Go, crank that ISO. So there's my hard drive. So what I'm going to do, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I'm going to do the equivalent of a RAID 5, but I'm going to split it into 2 pools. Well, not pools, sorry. I think they're called V-disks or something. We'll check it out in the GUI, but basically I'm going to do 4 and 4. I interrupt myself to say this doesn't quite work like this. If I want to use 2 VDEVs and the read cache, I need to essentially have another 2 additional 2.5-inch SSDs, which of course I can't fit in the case. Therefore unable to split the volume group or pull up into 2 VDEVs. So the case is rather limiting, and the space, all of that. So yeah, I just stuck with 1 VDEV and a read cache. But regardless, we'll carry on with the install and now check out the GUI. Okay, so we are back into the UI after the installation. This has been about a week later since that last shot. Here's my uptime. The temperatures are all good, hovering under of course 40 degrees, which is great. Memory, I could do with a little bit more of that to run some more VMs and applications and stuff. I really want to put a Minecraft server on this. But either way, we have our free space, used space and stuff like that showing there, which is great. Just sort of showing under 8 terabytes used, which is good. I managed to get the 10 gig networking going as well. I did that by plugging in a extra PCIe 10 gig card into my desktop, and to be honest I just patched it straight into the back of my desktop without a switch. Just used a static route to point all traffic to that uplink. The storage here, I've got 8 drives under, well, just 4 terabytes each. I have my mirror for my log disks. Yeah, the only thing I wished I had was larger drives and more VDEVs to get some more performance. So once again, Z-RAID loves more VDEVs. It involves bigger drives and more of them basically, but for this use case this works just fine for the home lab. So yeah, that's everything set up and going. So I've got Jellyfin running on this as well. I've also got some backup software. It's like synchronization stuff that comes via the application store, which has been really handy as well. As I said, I think I could do with a little bit more RAM. This machine seems to consume it when you're writing and reading data. Of course, the cache comes into play there. Some of 32 gigs would be great. Sync everything, as I said, is another app that I've installed. So this means that my desktop is currently being backed up. It has file history and stuff like that, which is really good. It synchronizes every 1 to 2 hours, I believe, something like that. As well as my cell phone. When I get home, it connects to the Wi-Fi and it will do a every 2 hours, I believe I've got it set for, every 4 maybe, to do a backup of my photos, so in case my phone gets lost or stolen. So what I ended up doing to cool the host bus adapter was I cut up a PCIe blanking plate, drilled some holes through it, and secured the fan that way, so the HBA is always cool. Power consumption's around 130-40 odd watts, so it's not too bad considering what's in the machine. Overall, after the first week of use, this thing's been really handy. It's just, you know, got a bunch of stuff on it that's useful in one box. As I said, I wouldn't mind having some more applications on there, Minecraft server and stuff like that. But yeah, if you guys are curious, definitely try and do a build home solution yourself. It's a lot of fun. You can customize it pretty much how you want it. And yeah, it was super awesome being able to put this thing together and put it to use. And bonus is it runs a lot of stuff in one box, and that's really what I was after. Alright everyone, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.